of how some people escape in communication and how unhealthy that is.
Well, one of the things we do as men is we watch TV. We get in front, and then when we're watching a football game, it's a way that our wife knows, even our children can know, that don't talk to me in this time. But we go from one game to another game to maybe to perhaps to a movie. We're just escaping.
Yeah.
Some guys work, some ladies work. They don't come home at all, and they always stay away. There's different ways that you can escape. You can even escape by being in the conversation, but I'm looking beyond you, and you say something to me, and I didn't hear what you said. I'm disengaged from what's going on, and I'm not even here, even though I may be present.
I'm looking through you.
Exactly.
My
Which means
somewhere else.
I don't care about what you're talking about.
And sometimes, let's just be real. Sometimes, women can talk a little more than we can,
Yeah.
and sometimes we can escape by listening to you, and we've just tuned you out.
Exactly.
We've practiced that.
Yeah.
I was watching Ray Romano. I forgot the name of his show. But
Everybody Loves Raymond?
Yeah, Everybody Loves. Well, no, it was the other one. I can't remember his name. But he had a daughter, and she came in, and now I think she's a teenager. And she was just talking, and his wife was standing. He said, "Wait a minute, I finally did it. After all this time, I tuned her out." He said, hold on. He told his wife, "Say something to me." So she was talking. He said, "What?" So
he was proud of it.
He was proud of it.
Oh.
And so what I'm saying is, and what you're saying is, sometimes, man, we can escape right next to a person.
Right.
We can escape sitting right in your face. And how unhealthy is that?
Yeah, that's very unhealthy. It's also a picture of how we think we are with God. Typically, a man that acts like that doesn't believe that God listens to his prayers.
Wow. Why would that be?
Because of what his imprint was a child, that his dad didn't listen to him. Typically, we carry out the model that we received as a child.
Wow. And so how do we grow out of escapism in conversation? And for instance, with conflict, because, a lot of people aren't confrontational.
Right.
And so it's easy to kind of act like something wasn't said.
Right.
Why do we do that and not stand up or not communicate the way we need to rather than escape?
Typically, what's happened is every conversation that you've ever been, every conflict that you've been in, you've lost. And so it's always a lose-lose. If every time I got into a fight when I was in grade school and I lost every time, pretty soon I get smart and stop getting into fights. Well, women are typically more verbal. They're more better with words than we are. So we learn that, hey, if I get into this fight with my wife, I'm going to lose sex. I'm going to lose the argument. Lose. It's just a lose. So you know what? I'm not going to get into this. I'm going to learn how to avoid the conflict. So I develop all these skills in avoidance. Yet then my wife looks at it as a conflict, as an emotional an invitation to intimacy.
Yeah.
Well, I look at it as it's a lose situation.
It's a lose situation.
Not going to get into it.
Not going to get into it. Because I know what this cost me last time.
Exactly.
And I think that comes back, at the beginning, as we were talking about, understanding, first of all, who I am in the communication process, and also understand who the other individual is. Because if I feel we've come to a point where you don't care about anything that I say, because what we'll do is we'll color them. You don't even listen to me, period.
No.
You never listen to me. Now, that's not always true. It may be there are a couple of things you haven't listened to that were important to me, and now I've set up a wall where when we start going down that road, I've learned the triggers.
Right.
And there are certain things that trigger where you're not listening to me anymore. Your eye contact, your body language. And so I've learned to just act like this situation is not taking place. I've escaped into my own little world. And here's it, because I know I've done it before, and I've been on the end where someone has shut down on me before, because they're just like, well, you don't care anyway. So we're not even going to go there. And you need them to dialogue with you because something very important at that moment.
That's good.
Man, that's good. What about attack?
Attack is when you feel like you've been threatened. You feel like something, either you're about to lose something, and so you have to push, and they said always the best defense is a good offense.
Yeah.
Well, let me push you out of here because I'm scared you're going to hurt me. I'm scared you're going to bother me. So I'm going to push against you, and that way we don't have to deal with any issues. We can keep it all on you. You're the problem. You've got the issues. I don't want to deal with mine. Mine are too difficult to unpack, and therefore I need to keep the focus on you.
I was watching the movie He's Just Not That Into You.
Yeah.
And one of the statements that was made, because, you know, the male character who was given all the information, He was still single, and he was just talking rough to women, and trying to help this young lady along. All the while, he was, falling for her. But one thing that she said to him is, you're always rough, you're always doing this, you're still alone, you're by yourself. And it made him think, because he was so busy attacking, trying to protect himself from being vulnerable to being hurt. Right. And I think a lot of times in communication, when we go into this defense mode, a lot of times when we're just talking crazy to people, underneath, we really are sensitive, and we've been hurt before. Yes. So we've learned how to attack you first before you get me. Right. And I think another one was a situation where it kind of goes with escape and attack in a situation. I can't remember what I was looking at or who I was talking to, but it was one story where this man had married this woman, and one day she just ran and hid in the closet. Wow. Ran and hid in the closet and was just crying. And he was like, she would always do that. They began to sit down and talk one day. He just, instead of just letting her go in there, he said, we have to work through this. Yeah. Went in there, opened the closet, sat down beside her. Excellent. And she began to explain to him that I always wanted someone to make me feel valued, that I was worth coming after. Right. Because her father always used to neglect her and leave her in the closet. Wow. And so he didn't know he was dealing with her daddy's issues. But if he had not gone to her when she escaped at that moment, instead of attacking her like he had normally been doing, calling her crazy, saying those things, he'd have never gotten the communication and the understanding of why she did it. And from that point, they began to build a relationship. Wow. And she began to feel more valued, because now I've learned as a defense mechanism to either attack you or to run from you, and that hindered communication.
That's it. I think one of the key things that he did that was very important, he set aside his desire to be understood and sought first to understand.
Break that down, because that's very important. I need to hear that. Go ahead.
That's the key thing, is if you can let go of your issues long enough that you can go reach out to that person to try to understand them. It's almost like they're speaking Chinese or German. Exactly. You can't understand. So what you've got to do is go to them wherever they're at. You have to go find and communicate to them wherever they're at. Sometimes that little girl, she probably felt like she was about 8 years old, and she was in her hiding. He needed to become 8 years old and go sit down next to her and be an 8-year-old boyfriend to her and communicate and say, help me understand. Give her that space so she could breathe out that childhood grief. And when she was able to do that, now as an 8-year-old, she felt safe and did not have to flight from him to escape, as we were talking about. And now she was able to open up and to be there for him. Now for a guy, you've got to understand, guys communicate in different ways. Yeah. And so you've got to kind of look and kind of discern, well, he's acting like an 8-year-old or he's acting like a 12-year-old. Well, then find out, how do you go deal with a 12-year-old young man? How do you go deal with a 8-year-old or 5-year-old if it's really that bad? Well, then go play with him. Go say, hey, let's go get some ice cream, or give him a cookie. All the kid guys like cookie. But understand, seek to, and that's the hardest thing. That's where Christ has to come in, is that you have so dealt with Christ that your issues are in Christ's hands, that you're able to say, hey, I'm going to come to you. Yeah. Let's deal with your issue. What's going on here? What did I do that made you feel like that? And help me so that I don't do that again.
So it comes back to the other show we did before about the relationships, why relationships fail. Selflessness rather than selfishness. That was so good. Because sometimes I want to make sure I'm understood, that I'm missing the point that my partner is not being understood at this moment, because it's so focused on me and what I'm not getting. Right. And so I need to make sure, okay, yes, I do need to be understood, but sometimes the way that I'm going to be understood is to understand. Yes. And once I understand, then guess what? Now we can both be understood. And so when we begin to look at that, man, this helped me out a whole lot. Now, how big a role do feelings play? Oh, my goodness. In communicating?
Let me tell you, in dealing with women, one of the things you're going to have to deal with is feelings.
Feelings.
As men, we tend to say to deny our feelings, but for a woman, you've got to understand that is her primary makeup. Yeah. And you have to be careful and celebrate that vehicle that she is. Scripture says that women are delicate, and you have to understand that what she feels in the morning is what she's probably going to feel in the afternoon. So if you're mean to her in the morning and you go through your day and you haven't addressed what you did in the morning, she's still going to be feeling those feelings in the afternoon.
Is that right?
And so you've got to help her by saying, okay, I own the damage that I did in the morning. I'm sorry, and if I have to pay